All right, we are here with Elise Espeland for the Semblance Gallery Talk at mgalleriesfellowship. Hi, Elise.
Hi.
Hey, so do you want to share a little bit about your background as an artist?
Yes, I've always been an artist ever since I was little. Crafts, painting, drawing, sculpture, I have done it all. I went to Rutgers, I went to Mason Gross School of the Arts and got a degree in painting back in 2003. And I maintained doing art for a long time. I actually worked as a glass mosaic artist in Manhattan at a studio for 3.5 years.
Very cool.
Around that time, I actually went back to school for accounting instead of art this time. Got my degree and have been doing it more as a personal pursuit at this point.
Very cool. Yeah, so do you want to share, unpack the title of the show, Semblance?
Yes, so this show is more about the impressions of nature. Everybody had a different reaction to COVID. For me, I have a small child, and keeping him entertained when I couldn't take him anywhere or do anything with him was extremely difficult. So I've always loved hiking, so I would take him out hiking, I would take him out for walks, I would just get us outside as much as I possibly could. So that's been most of what I've probably been doing with him over the past 2 years. And this is just, at the end of the day, you're either, during COVID, a lot of people were left with the impressions of being in their house all day, but I was more left with the impressions of being outside. Even when I was at work, I would take a walk during lunch, take a walk really any chance I got. So the impressions left for me personally of nature are what this show is about. So it's more about the emotion rather than trying to communicate physical form.
Indeed. Yeah, these are just they're really wonderful pieces. So it's like the classic impressionism, like you're taking, this, immediate moment and trying to translate it to canvas, right?
Yes.
And is it like through memory you're getting these, or?
Yes, but I also take a lot of photos, especially when I'm out hiking with my son. He's fascinated by everything. So we would stop and take pictures of mushrooms, a tree stump, an animal trying to get away. So.
Well, I love how, and your write-up is really wonderful. There was this line in it that was it delicate perfection, I think is what it was.
Yes.
And is that your son's sort of exposed you to that in a sense, right? You learn from him as well.
Yeah, because for me, I'm very physically active, so for me, hiking also was about just getting out there and getting some exercise and getting some endorphins going. But for him, he'll stop everywhere and look at something new every chance he gets. So we would sit and examine something and, take a closer look. So it definitely encouraged me, being with him, to look at things differently than I normally would.
Very nice. So since we're on the topic of influences, can you share some of your art influences?
Yes. When I was younger, I was mainly into surrealism, and I liked Inca Ace and High, Salvador Dali. I really loved Salvador Dali's work. He's my favorite artist by far. Especially seeing his stuff in person when there was a show of his in Philadelphia at it was the Philadelphia Art Museum.
Philadelphia Museum, yeah.
It was incredibly detailed, and the fact that he could take something out of his head and put that on canvas was just amazing to me. But lately, I've been just trying to express things more rather than try to go super realistic or hyperrealism.
Yeah.
And definitely surrealism, I would say, is a big influence on me, but de Kooning as well.
Yeah, very cool. Well, can you share a little bit about the work behind you? What is it that can you tell us about the process a little bit, or how you get to these images?
Yes, and it's definitely a bit of meditation, trial and error, but I've been doing things where I just let things drip, let gravity pull the paint down for a long time, actually on my own, just as something I like to do. So with this, I was just painting. I was painting different things, and actually that one was the first one I completed.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really enjoyed it. So I just went on that vein, pretty much just with impressions I was left with at the end of the day.
Mm.
And,
Yeah, there's something, I don't know if this is part of it, but there's something kind of Eastern about this for me, like this like kind of calligraphic, like Japanese style, like calligraphy, quick brush strokes, trying to get an impression of something.
yes.
So is that part of this at all?
I actually did get a kit a while back to do with the Japanese calligraphy. So I did experiment with that a while back.
Yeah, we'll detail this.
It's interesting that you bring that up.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, why don't you move to this other set here? Yeah, roll down here. So can you speak to your color choices? That's always an interesting subject.
That's definitely to do with where I was at the time, what impressions I was left with.
Mm-hmm.
Most of this is during the fall, honestly, so you're probably going to see more fall colors. I like to hike places that have a body of water typically, especially because my son loves putting his hands in the water, playing with things, trying to see what's in there. So.
So have you ever worked with your son in making art, or is that on the table at any
Actually,
point?
yeah, I have. His stuff's pretty interesting. It's a lot of abstract,
Right.
but it's cool. He also, when he draws, it's funny because he's very into representing everything. So everybody has 5 very defined fingers, and he colors things in very thoroughly. So.
Oh, I love it. So was he in any part with this show? Like how?
Not specifically with the art making process.
Right.
This was after he went to bed. I'm sure that if I got him involved, he'd be more than happy to, but at the same time, this was more meditative than a 6-year-old's energy, which is a very different level. Plus, I'd have to put a tarp down.
Yeah, oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Please.
That house, it looks almost like it could be an owl or a chipmunk or a lion.
Yeah, let's get in front of that, just to get a little detail.
This is actually a tree stump,
Oh.
but that's the whole point with not defining something, is that you can interpret it in any way you wish. But this was at Rancocas State Park. There was this interesting tree stump that my son and I were looking over for a long time. So
Are all your paintings in oil?
these are acrylic. I worked in oil for a very long time, but realistically, I'd have to have a studio space. I'm sure that if I left the room, I would come back and my 6-year-old would have the mineral spirits everywhere or something. So just from the standpoint of being a parent and working out of your bedroom, it's
And
more feasible.
Why don't you sign your work?
Ah.
I do in the top left, but I don't like having my signature be part of the imagery. It's something I've always not wanted to do. So I've always just signed it on the side or on the back. Because I don't feel like when somebody comes to view an artwork, they really want to see my handwriting. It should be more about what you're representing. So either you sign it in the bottom hoping that the frame covers it, or you just put it somewhere else. So I've always just put it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a question that comes up. And
Well, as a student way back, I was always told to sign your painting.
Right,
That
right.
was the
I was
last thing
too.
they said, make sure you
That's right.
sign your painting.
Oh, yeah.
I was too. That's something I never listened to. I just refused. I was like, nah. So, you know, and
Well-
like when I'm looking at Monets or something, there's the telltale Monet, or, but at the same time, just for me personally, it's never been something I wanted to do when I was painting something, especially when I was doing a lot of realism. I'm sitting there trying to make something that looks exactly like what I'm looking at, and to put my name on the bottom would have just killed me. So I just chose, like, I'm not going to do it. So.
Yeah. Well, I have a theory on why that's become, like the norm, and it comes back to, in the 70s, text started to become subject matter for paintings. So now it's you can't ignore the signature anymore. Like it's part of the work of like you know, the classics that you're supposed to ignore the signature of, you know, Monet or Pollock or whatever. But now, like, it's because artists started using text to make images, that's when it seemed to stop, you know, and like people thought more about what was on the surface. So does that make sense? So,
For me, it just always, at my core, struck me as something I didn't want to do.
mhm.
But I guess to each his own. So.
Yeah,
Somebody
and
wants to sign their work, that's completely their.
yeah, and this is like a window into another world, right? And it seems like that maybe a signature would kind of stop you from entering into it.
No, that's
Right,
exactly how
right.
I feel about
Right.
you know, painting or any type of artwork really, like even ceramics. You sign it on the bottom, not across the front where
Mhm.
you're viewing.
Yeah, so do you want to share a little bit about your non-art influences? I know maybe your son, you know, technically,
Oh,
maybe that's all. But
He's
what other influence?
9/10 of the influence of my day at this point.
Yeah, right.
It's like work and then child. But definitely when I went back to school for accounting, I had a professor, Professor Sachs,
Mm-hmm.
and he's an excellent professor, but one of the things that he was really encouraging about was asking questions and thinking about things and a lot of analytical problem solving. And I think that just in daily life, I approach things differently than I did 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, because I'm more trying to solve whatever problem is going on in my daily life by thinking through it. So I would say that I definitely approach everything, including art, differently.
Mm.
Before it would be like, okay, when am I going to find this huge block of time to sit down and work on this painting forever? And now I'm, you know, more open to approaching it from more meditative, emotional side than I was before.
Mm. Yeah. Do you find that do you find this this is a meditative practice now, the painting?
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. And I need it because I work hard and at being a mom and at work, so at the end of the day, it's a welcome change of pace.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you paint that at the site?
No, I
Or went
painted
back
it,
by memory?
no, by memory at home after. I also took a ton of pictures.
Not only.
So, yeah, my phone battery was dead at the end of every hike, so.
So photography was a major. Well, actually, that kind of dovetails into the next question. Is that like what other media do you like to work in, other than acrylic painting?
I've worked in I've worked in a lot of things at this point. I've worked with ceramics, wood, metal, glass. I've done a variety of arts and crafts. I took up quilling at one point, if anybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've done a lot, bookbinding, paper making, a lot. But what's at hand is usually what I do. Like my son, now I have a unique perspective because now I'm the person helping my child with art projects. So it's good that I have this store of crafts and art supplies. Anytime he has something for school, I'm like, all right, I have something for that, and then we whip something out. He had this project where it was hide a turkey. So they'll give you a picture of a turkey, and he's got to color it, and you've got to hide it. Like some people had, they covered up the turkey with popcorn, this and that. I got a sleeve, like the kind of sleeve that you put papers in for presentation, and we actually used hot glue and leaves to cover it up so that just his eyes were peeking out, and you could take it out and put it back in, and he loved that. So that's really fun.
I love that. That's great. Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about the imagery you pick? You know, so where do these pictures come from?
So I go hiking a lot of different places. I'm always trying to try new places, but my most frequently hiked places are Rancocas State Park, Crow's Woods, Black Run Preserve. So probably one of those is most likely where these come from generally. I have a wealth of pictures from most of the hiking sites in South Jersey.
Hmm.
So.
Would you ever consider showing the photographs as
Yeah.
artwork?
Yes, I did send you some.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, meaning like for an exhibition, or is that
Yeah,
just like
okay.
note taking?
No, I could. I have plenty. I have
Mhm.
a lot. So
Mhm.
I mostly just put them up on Facebook currently.
Very nice. Yeah. So probably my favorite question I like to ask artists is, what do you think of the current state of the arts? You know, so what is it about now that's either you like or dislike, or somewhere in between?
I think that art is a very personal thing for a lot of people, and it's really what it does for you, how it lets you express yourself. So for me personally, it's just always been something I've done in one way or another. It's, you know, find its way out. Even if I'm not practicing something in one way, I'll start doing something else. So I think it's just more about expressing yourself in some way or another. Most people work hard, they work all day. They put in a lot of time for things that are not about self-expression. So I think that ideally it should either be that, or it should evoke emotion from you know, some frame of reference. So
Well, what kind of emotion are you trying to evoke here?
just meditative peace. I find it calming. My son finds it extremely exciting. To him, it's all new, it's all novel. So
Right,
it's
right.
fun seeing that through the eyes of a child.
Oh. Yeah. So,
How old is your son?
He's 6.
Ah, good age.
He's so cute.
we should do a collaborative show, you know, of your son and you together. That would be great.
That kid can produce art, that's all I'm gonna say. Loves to do anything active, so anything where he gets to draw, paint, you know. He's actually getting to do some ceramics in school now, so I'm like, awesome. I've always loved ceramics. So.
Mm. So I feel like that, from what I've known of your work, this is actually refreshingly loose, you know, from what I remember seeing what you've done in the past. So how does it feel to kind of be loose with, you know, more? This is the loosest I've seen you, I think, you know, in your paint application.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a different person than I was.
Yeah.
Back when I was more into hyperrealism and surrealism. So things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more open to it now. Before, and I'm the type of person who works something over and over and over again, and I can get to the point where I put a ton of time into it. But with this type of style of painting, if you've overworked it, you've killed it.
Yeah,
so
right.
that's the thing, is to get to the point where it's at the right point is challenging sometimes. So
For sure.
it's a different kind of
You can't
thinking.
deny it's loose.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's also of the tradition of watercolor, I feel, because watercolor, in watercolor, technically there's no white. You're not supposed to use white in watercolor. It's supposed to be the surface is the white, right? So you're kind of doing this with acrylic.
I did a lot of watercolor, if you're
Right.
so that makes sense.
Yes, they're kind of like letting the background, you know, be of that watercolor tradition.
Yeah, which when I was in art school and I got to the higher level painting classes, I tended to do. And it was funny because with our teachers, they would always say, that's usually a no-no, but they seem to enjoy it when I did it. So I think it just depends on what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. So the way you've titled the work is very interesting.
Yes.
Can you speak to why are the numbers numbered?
Okay, so it's actually after the Fibonacci sequence, which is prevalent in a lot of plants in natures where the sum of the two numbers before it is the next number in the sequence.
Uh huh.
And a lot of plant life grows up in the way where it strikes upon those numbers. And additionally, there's also the Fibonacci angle, which is prevalent in plant life. So I also love math, accounting.
Yeah. Right.
So I guess I drew that into it mainly because I was taking a different approach with hiking with my son. I would just sit and actually look at things rather than just blowing by like I normally would, or examine things more.
Yeah, please.
I notice here, you know, you say acrylic on canvas, but you haven't titled any of these.
Oh, that's actually the numbers, the Fibonacci sequence numbers. I just use the Fibonacci numbers and then one on the end for this show.
So like the math found in nature has become the title of the work.
Yes.
So it's like this. It's a way to quantify it. So I love that you number numbers. You know. So it's really, I thought that's really interesting. So, but yeah.
How would I know if I liked a particular one, which one it
Oh no,
is?
sure. Well, it's since they're all in a line. Number 1 starts on the left, so it goes 1 through 12.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So the other kind of thing of note for the show is that you have 2 sizes of paintings.
Yes.
There's the small and the large. Can you share like why that pattern, or why is that part of the exhibition?
Yes. Well, for me, just the what I was trying to do, determine what size canvas. When I went into it, it's not like I had no idea what I was going for.
Sure.
So when I picked an image in my head that I'm trying to convey,
Mm-hmm.
I would already know what size canvas I wanted to use.
Yeah, because you have and also what's interesting, I always think it's interesting when landscape artists choose portrait mode, the portrait style, to make a landscape. So it's sort of like going against the grain, when it comes to making a landscape.
It depends,
Right.
because in this piece, it's of the tree, so it's kind of a portrait of a tree if you think about it that way.
Sure, right?
So,
Yeah, and then the one behind you is like a portrait of the stump.
yes.
And the ones that are in the landscape mode feel more like you feel the horizon line more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I would say that definitely with the smaller ones, the horizon line was more front and center.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was trying to convey a panoramic view rather than zoning in on something I saw that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that seems to be this interesting, like almost like a paradox. Like the smaller ones seem more vast, and the larger ones seem more intimate,
Yes.
right? So like I think that's also really an interesting choice, format. Yeah. So oh, and can you are there any other non-art influences or art influences like?
I have plenty of influences. Everybody does. I mean, I'm influenced every day
Mhm.
by the people in my life. So, for me, I just, at this point, I try to take away something from every experience as a learning experience. It's like, even if I don't succeed at something, and believe me, I like to succeed, but even if I don't succeed at something, I try to take something away from it so that
Mm.
it's not, so that I don't feel like it's a wasted experience or wasted time. So
Mm.
every experience, every relationship I have with a person influences that. And I know a lot of people are influenced by people who are notable and famous, but honestly, the people in my daily life by far influence me more.
Oh, for sure.
Much, much more than anyone I see on TV. So,
Right. Or reading a newspaper.
or reading a newspaper.
Mm.
I mean, if I'm reading a book, a nonfiction book,
Mm-hmm.
that someone wrote, that has the capability to influence me quite a bit, actually.
Mm.
But it depends.
Mm.
So it depends on what I'm reading.
Mm.
Like Carl Jung,
Mm.
as we
Oh,
talked about
huge.
before.
Yeah, a giant. And well, you brought it up briefly, but I want to learn more about the gravity aspect of it, and because that's there's a lot of verticality in this work. The dripping allowed, like it feels like that there's, you feel the force.
Well, definitely, and I think that when you're hiking, you feel it too, and you can see it in every tree branch and everything that you do, especially, and I think it was because of the number of storms we had.
Mm.
There were a ton of fallen trees, some of which were still growing. Their roots were exposed, but their roots were still in the ground, and they were sprouting new leaves. That was extremely interesting. So, especially my son, he loved it. He wanted to go climb on it. He would go look at the roots. He'd be like, "Can I touch it?" I'm sure. He's like, touching everything. So, there was a large element of that, definitely, with what I was perceiving. So,
Mm.
What are you using with your acrylics to make them fluid enough to drip?
water.
Water?
Mm.
Makes sense.
Mm.
I used to do it with oils when I was doing drip paintings on my own. I would use mineral spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So it's long as you prime the canvas enough, you don't have a problem.
Right.
What you're supposed to say is you collected rainwater and you use that to make your.
That's interesting. That would take me a while. I guess I could do it. I have to get my dad to not dump the water. Collect it.
Yeah, because I love how it's like the self-referentialness of it. You know, it's water. You're painting water with water in an image of what, you know. It's like this wonderful layering, you know, with the series, and it was striking for me to see it like this. So, yeah. All right. Any other questions for Elise before we wrap up?
Not at the moment.
All right. Well, Elise, thank you for this wonderful talk and this exhibition here at mGalleries Fellowship. Yes, I'll be up all month till the end of December. So, thank you, Elise.